G'day, I'm here with another cadaver, and this one's going to be an interesting case. My initial observations start from this side, to be quite honest. Very big abscess crack here, large crack in the toe, slight sort of flaring all the way around from about this level. Flip it upside down. This horse looks like he was trimmed not long before his days ended. So whatever the story was, you can see there's loads of rasp marks all in here. Whatever story was with this guy, the last few days before he passed away weren't too pleasant, the abscess, and you can see lots of holes here. This here is below the abscess line. Definitely some damage was caused in this area of the foot which led to the abscess. I would say it just became infected due to the hoof wall getting long, these cracks developing, them getting infected, creating a big pus bubble with inside the foot, which would have led to very, very severe form of lameness for this horse. Until that blew out, probably about 3 months before this horse passed away, this horse experienced this abscess, because this would have blown out up here. It always blows out at the coronet. I've never seen a blowout within the hoof wall itself. This blows out here, and then as the hoof grows, this scarred crack moves further and further down the foot until it grows out the bottom. But it would have started due to this split here. It's in line with it. This split, there'll be a channel that goes all the way up, and there'll be a channel that would have gone all the way up to the top. So this horse obviously went lame, and then the horse owner decided to get some help. Hence it now being in this sort of trimmed, semi-trimmed state at this present moment. So let's get set up. Let's investigate this a little further. Look how much of a bow. This bit of hoof wall, the white line's been stretched and has pushed the hoof wall out, creating this great big bow here, deviating away from the sole line. Looking down from the front of the foot like this, doesn't look to be too many deviations. Looks reasonably even in the way it's growing. When you hold the foot down like that, however, you can see how imbalanced this foot is. Either the limb itself has deviations in its conformation and this foot's trimmed level, or the hoof is completely out of balance, which we will find out as we go along. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to clean up this frog, as we normally do. When things are flapping and look like they're wanting to come off, we'll take it off, but all in all it looks like it is a reasonably healthy frog, not too much, reasonably well developed. One of the least necrotic types of frogs that I see, but do want to take some of these bits that are flapping, because within no time they would deteriorate and rot out, and that's what the bacteria and fungus loves, especially down here where this was already wanting to come off that little bit. I just want to stress, I've said this in other videos, but I'm here in New Zealand where the climate's very wet, and generally the frogs of horses are very much deteriorated, and people see online, you know, other farriers from other parts of the world, they'll carve this frog and it's all beautiful and glossy and clean and dry, and they can really, you know, make it look super pretty. but that's because they are well developed frogs. They are nice and dry and they're not infected, and it's just their environment and climate that those horses happen to live in. Here we have to be very careful how much we take off. We want to try to leave as much healthy tissue on as we can. But we also want to trim off the infected, fusty, dead tissue. So I'm going to trim these bars up. You know, doing these kind of things, this is the first time I've got my hands on a whole heap of cadavers. I've done this when I was learning other farriers and other courses and other things I'd done. We would dissect cadavers in those things, but you know, getting the chance to work with these cadavers and have 8 of them turn up is fantastic. Really interesting. I'm gonna take this sole callus bit off here, and this is trimming how we would trim a live horse. I'm not doing this because this is dead. This is how we would trim a live horse. I'm doing nothing any different than the regular hoof care that I do on a live horse. So it's not like I'm doing something now which would hurt a horse if he was alive. Actually be a lot easier to do because his foot's not moving around all over the place. You know, I can grip it between my legs and actually work a lot more efficiently. Okay, see, this is already taken down to the level of sole, so this is already trimmed quite short, to be honest, especially this side. This side looks like it's got a little bit of length, so I'm just going to run the nippers around this side. Let's clean that up a bit more there. So we see there is one crack here, one crack there. There is no white line disease, as in that crack is not infected and it's not travelling around. Especially in this sort of a case, you can often find that a crack there and a crack there, and then all this is separated. There's a big cavity right in behind here. That's not the case. This was caught early. You can see that area here that was damaged. So how do horses get abscesses? Horses generally, from my experience, get abscesses because the horse's sole, this whole area here, and the entire hoof tissue in general, is quite soft due to the environment it lives in. It's more common in wet climates for abscesses to develop because there's more dirt and debris, and there's more moisture, making all of the tissue in the hoof dry. When I worked in South Africa and when I worked in Queensland, Australia, these feet were rock hard. You couldn't trim the sole with a hoof knife like this. It was just too hard. It was like marble. So very, very hard, sometimes excessively hard, the total opposite environment to the environment I'm in now. So abscesses occur when the foot gets soft and then a horse walks over or runs over something very hard like a stone, and the stone whacks this part of the foot, creates a big bruise deeper in the foot where the soft tissue is, and then because of the moisture, because of the swelling and inflammation caused by that, it can develop an infection, and it creates a huge big pus bubble somewhere inside the foot. So the horse will be sore straight after he's obviously stepped on something hard and caused that damage and that stone bruise, but it won't be bad enough that the horse, generally it's not bad enough that the horse can't sort of, you know, walk along, but you can tell he's lame, you know, you can tell he's done something that's made him tender on the foot. But then as the week goes by, day by day, the pressure builds inside here, and especially when it gets infected, a big pus bubble starts to form, and that pressure builds up and up and up, and day in and day after day, the horse will get lamer and lamer and lamer. And if the abscess doesn't pop on its own, or a farrier or a vet doesn't come, press around, find the point, dig in with a knife and pop it, it becomes excruciating to the point where the horse can't even put his foot on the floor, and sometimes he'll just sit with his foot sticking out forwards, sitting back on his heel, or it'll be resting his toe, depending on where the abscess is. It'll try to alleviate any form of pressure, just like you having like a big spot, or whacking your thumb with a hammer and it swells up. There's just this intense throbbing that puts pressure on all the sensitive nerves within inside the foot that surrounds the bones and all the blood vessels, and it is excruciating. The horse will stand there sweating and sweating and sweating and can't move at all. So that's why, and that's how you can tell it's most likely an abscess, is a progression of lameness from mildly lame to severely excessively lame, and then all of a sudden it'll pop and the relief is instantaneous. So that's what's happened here. It's popped. Like I said at the beginning of the video, it would pop out somewhere where it's soft, so sometimes it can pop out close to where the crack is that caused it initially, or a part of the sole that got damaged. But generally the pressure will build up, and the only place for it to pop is through the soft skin at the hairline at the coronet, and that's what would have happened in this horse's case. And we can see from where that damage is now that it was about 3 to 6 months after this horse passed away. So it's where the hoof starts to grow. It's the tip of the hoof wall. It's about 12 months for the hoof to grow from here down to there. So halfway, we're at about the 6 month mark. 3 months, 3 months, 3 months. So 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, approximately. We can sort of roughly guess 6 months ago this horse had this abscess, and for whatever reason he didn't recover from it and has ended up legless. So we've got a little bit more of a better balance on this foot by reducing this side down. We know what causes an abscess and how you determine whether it is an abscess, and what to do about the abscess if you come across it. Find a farrier or a vet who can pop it ideally and avoid this kind of a damage. Once a horse has had an abscess like that and things are cleaned up, obviously you've got to find the cause of it. See if you can do anything about that. You can clean this crack up here so that you can pour some iodine into it, so that the iodine goes inside the foot and down inside the channel, help keep that from a reinfection. But other than that, it's a case of keeping this horse trimmed on a regular basis so that these cracks don't get worse, and you sort of end up causing the same issues repetitively. This foot's all out of whack, eh? This bends way out here. This horse would have gone for a period of time where he was not trimmed at all. Seems to be the case, you know. Here we are. You can see this trim is flat with the level of the sole, so the sole doesn't have hardly any protection. If it was possible to shoe this horse, you know, you'd probably shoe this horse to help elevate the foot off the ground a bit. You might want to put a pad with some impression material or some iodine packing material, something to help keep this, when this was fresh and new, nice and sterile. But if not, if you were running them barefoot, it'd be a case of you know, bringing them in and cleaning them on a regular basis. There would have been some damage here, like a big hole, a big raw hole, so you obviously want to soak that in Epsom salts, salt water, and then iodine. Just reduce the chances of infection and help speed up the healing process. You could put a poultice on, try and wrap the foot, but it's very tricky to keep them on for a lot of work. So that's an abscess, and this horse had one, poor fella. So before I actually conclude this video, last year here in New Zealand it rained pretty much from the end of summer all the way through the winter, right into spring the following year. So we had an extremely wet year last year, and I had to deal with more abscesses than I've ever dealt with in my life. You know, out of all my clients, I probably ended up dealing with like 15 abscesses in a 12-month period, and it's a miserable situation because a lot of properties, they're just, you know, we're not set up to deal with any of those things. Horses stood in mud all the time, and last year was an exceptionally wet year, so these horses, you know, they were just saturated. It is tricky, it is challenging, and I do want to just sort of say that there are a lot of things we can do as horse owners to prevent these things, but sometimes your back's against the wall, and but an abscess is something we can deal with, we can treat, and it's not life-threatening. It looks life-threatening when the horse can barely walk, but believe me, a horse recovers very quickly from it, and after that they've never been in as much pain as that in their life, so everything else is a walk in the park. See, didn't need to do that, but just felt compelled to tidy that up. Alright, thanks for watching.